Finish at what time? We should 11.
11 is.
Thank you very much.
11, 10 or something, because they have a class after.
Yeah. And are we going to sing?
We were told that we don't want to disturb the neighbors.
Yes, but maybe
Well,
the
in
10
low-
minutes, 15 minutes,
Okay,
last
Yes,
minutes.
15 minutes. Around 11, it's the interbreak. I mean, there's a break, a coffee break. So it's a moment where you don't have any noise.
Okay, so at the end we can do some
yes,
chanting.
of course.
And right now we'll start chanting Om. Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you all for allowing us to stand up here and make fools of ourselves. I don't know if my English is going to be appropriate or not. Yeah, we have. Yeah, I guess Spanish is not going to help much either. No.
They all speak English because they are international students.
Yeah, but do they
Poland,
speak?
Lithuania,
Yeah.
Italy.
But Sarah, if you want, I can speak Indian English. I speak California English. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. A little more. Okay, I was born 1948 in Guam, in the Marianas, right, which before belonged to Spain. Yeah. And my parents were there at the end of World War II, and they met, fell in love, got married. This is anthropologically part of the process. And then I grew up in California. How many people have been to California? Okay. How many people have heard the song Hotel California? Okay, there we go. Yeah. It's a very iconographic song. He describes how, it came to him when he was writing, and it catches, the ethos very nicely. It's very powerful. So anyway, I grew up there. We had one of the first television sets on the block, and telephones then, if you rang somebody and they weren't there, nothing happened. There was no answering machine. Then eventually I graduated in psychology. I started in electrical engineering, because after World War II, science was king. Whatever science could do, science had to do. That was just incredible. So it was a very strong atmosphere with scientific perspective, knowledge, and all these hopes. But very quickly I figured out that it was very limited, so I changed from from physical sciences to biology. Okay. But then I began to discover it was the same thing, right? How many people know the Krebs energy cycle in biology? Yeah. And what does it look like? It's like a big circle with all these things going around. And basically what it is this is how a piece of bread becomes glucose. Or how about adenotriphosphate? Yeah, that's how far it goes. Yeah. This is how, because your cells live on adenotriphosphate. That's what it is. But it starts with bread. Yeah. But they're analyzing the entire thing into chemical machines. Make everything into a machine. Well, now we know. Okay. So that was also limited. I was doing brain surgery on rats who didn't live because they were destined to be slaughtered for science and stuff. It was a strange experience. So physical sciences, life sciences, and then what's left? Then I changed to cognitive sciences, psychology. And that was a very interesting time. One of the biggest influences at that time was Carl Jung. Carl Jung had come to the United States, and practically speaking, the Hare Krishnas, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami and Carl Jung were a tremendous background. Anybody know any of the hippie leaders at that time? Abby Hoffman, Jerry Rubin, Timothy Leary, and they were developing whole cultural philosophy perspective. And also then Marshall McLuhan,
Yes.
E.T. Hall, him, Edward Thomas Hall. He was also a very powerful, prominent person, because it was a big change in worldview at that time. Okay, so by then I had to graduate, but I started investigating improvisational theater. Anybody here ever do improvisational theater? A little bit, yeah. who were your teachers? What school was
When I
it?
was young, for a couple of summer, I attended this theater summer camp. So basically,
Yeah.
for a couple of weeks, we did theater and end up with a play, and as an exercise.
Did
we
you
improvise.
know Viola Spolin?
Huh?
Viola Spolin.
No, no,
Improvisation. Were you using games?
Yes.
Yeah, theater games. Yeah. So it was a very advanced culture. The psychology came down to, this was the best thing I found. By then I had to graduate. So I ended up at Northwestern University in Chicago and trying something different. But then I had already been through physical sciences, life sciences, cognitive sciences, started improvisational theater. And I'm wondering, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? Which maybe many people here are also trying to figure that out at this point. And so fortunately, I got Donald Campbell. He was president of the American Psychological Association, Donald Campbell. And he was a genius, incredible person, He said, basically, you figured it out. He said, what you're in now is a career track. He said, if you he used strong language, but he said basically if you were, submissive and everything else, you have enough money to have a wife, a dog, a car, a house, have a pretty good vacation, but you're not going to be able to do anything you want to do until you're basically 40 or 45 years old. And that's, you become a graduate student, right? Then you become a PhD. After that, what happens? Postdoctorate. And after postdoctorate, assistant professor in the United States, and then associate professor, and then at 45 years old, you can start to investigate the things that you really thought were important. So he said, if you have any manly qualities, you'll get out of this and just go straight to Asia. Just risk sleeping in the bushes a few nights in your life, and just, try it out. So I kind of headed that way, and I got a black belt in Okinawa and karate. And I fought with a dog one time. It was a big dog. I won, fortunately. There we go. He's giving you a pill. One pill makes you bigger, one pill makes you small. Yeah. So anyway, we did the had days, and the karate was very good. From that, I learned a lot about prana and how the energy flows in the body, and it's a very systematic, scientific process. Yeah. How many people here know Jackie Chan? Okay. Jet Li. Okay. Bruce Lee. Okay. Yeah. Oh, come in. Whether this is your class or not, you'll have a good time. Yeah. So that's kind of my particular perspective. And in this whole process, I tried out the karate perspective and this kind of thing. I was working with a Swedish cabinet maker for some time, Gunnar Lind. And from him, I learned a lot about principles of design. He was a functional alcoholic. What is this anthropologist? What is a functional alcoholic?
No family?
Huh?
No family?
No. Functional alcoholic is somebody who has his alcohol intake under control. For example, he would get like, I think, 1 pint? They would have a bottle for him, and that was it every night. So next day he'd be functional, which is very interesting if you're a cabinet maker, because how many cabinet makers do you know who have all their fingers? It's very rare. Yeah. And so if you're a functional alcoholic, but he was a very interesting person. I learned a lot from him about design principles and everything, So a lot of people along the way. But then eventually became in contact with yoga. I got the board out here. I got Dharma. Okay, yeah. In India and the whole Indian philosophy, culture, everything else. Okay. So how many people here know a little bit about yoga? Have you taken any yoga classes? Anybody? Yeah. So yoga, usually in the West, okay, what the word comes from, the root word is yukta, which in English comes to what is it word? Yoke. If you look at the history of languages, it's etymology, Yeah, etymology, epistemology, okay, yeah. Entomology. How many people here know what entomology is?
We know it.
The study of bugs, right? Yeah, I know. Okay, etymology, yeah. And you see so many words and the origin of the words, the history and so on. So many of them will say, what is it, OED or petty pet or something, what is it? It's Indo-European language group, yeah. Because originally there was the invasion theory, the idea that all the culture came from the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent, spread from there, and then it went to India, and the Aryan invasion happened, okay. But pretty much now at this point, we have a lot of contacts with academic people, everything else. Nobody is putting any fuel into the Aryan invasion anymore. Nobody's putting any fuel into that. It's going on because of momentum and some people, but yeah, if there was an Aryan invasion from the north, then your genetics of the Aryan people should be more in the north and not in the south. No, languages, no, So pretty much, at least now, the idea is that the culture that's coming out of India in terms of yoga, religion, worldview, everything else is indigenous as far back as we can go and so on, like that. So there are many things, like, boy, we could go on for weeks here. Okay, close the door, like that. Yeah. So I want to know basically kind of like this is kind of what I have to offer and what your interests are. So then I got involved with A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who brought this whole tradition and was simply representing his tradition to a large degree. And then he figured out that his best customers were hippies. So the movement developed like that with people on the streets singing, dancing, everything else. But also it's developed a very strong academic, scientific perspective. And for that aspect, there was a thing called the Bhaktivedanta Institute, which was organizing congresses. When I got involved about 1984, we organized the first World Congress, what's it called? First World Congress for a synthesis of science and religion. Now, it should have been a synthesis from science and religion, but he was not English speaker and stuff. And we had George Wald, who else? Charles Towns, many Nobel laureates and other people. And they came together in Bombay, and they were discussing about, okay, religion has this powerful tradition, and science has this powerful tradition. So maybe we can start the two working together and make a synthesis as chemistry for something good for people like that. So it was very effective. It had a lot of international results. And then we did another program in Calcutta about, it was 84, 96, about 12 years later, second Congress. That wasn't so effective internationally. Second World Congress for a synthesis of science and religion. Again, participation from Nobel laureates, Dalai Lama, which was named Mar Gregorius, Paulos Mar Gregorius from the Greek Orthodox Church, and what's the guy from Chicago, a big theologian from Notre Dame, that his name. But all these very prominent people, and they were very interested in these doing something together. So then we had the second one, and that wasn't so prominent internationally, but in Calcutta and Bengal, it had a tremendous effect, because Bengal had gone through this stage where, they were going to become communists. They were going to kick out all the polytheism and all this stuff and become, of course, Abbie Hoffman said, it wasn't communism that made Russia powerful, it was industrialization. So the two were tied very much together.
Professor,
Oh, please.
Professor Roberts.
With my students, our students, Monica and I asked them if they could prepare some questions for you.
Okay.
In the sense that would be a conversation.
Yeah.
We are dealing with the idea what is a sect and what is religion, monotheism, animism. Well, how would you explain to them, because they are very interested in this, is Hinduism a monotheist classification for all the pantheon of gods?
Yeah.
Because you are a philosopher as well.
Yes.
So, and expert on Indian, classic Indian culture. If you could orient our
curiosity on this.
Okay, let me finish off with one,
Okay.
no, one very ultimate thing. So, we decided, our tradition coming here, that the real powerful, prominent philosophy, religion at this point is science. Science is a dominating idea, and so one of our questions is science a religion? Yeah, that's one of the predominant questions we deal with. And so most of my education, perspective, everything else, and I went back to my roots, and so I went into Carl Jung, and I can discuss on a global basis, I can deal with people in psychology. And so my ultimate focus was science, psyche, and spirituality. The encounter of Carl Gustav Jung with the Bhaktisiddhanta of traditional India. And so that's what, I'm really expert at and stuff. But yeah, so many things. I've been to India like, I don't know, 22 times every year practically. We're just coming back and so on. So because that's our point of view, that science is the predominant philosophy, and we have to investigate what is right and what is wrong about it. No? Yeah. But other than that, if you want to go, this is my map of India. Okay, and here's Delhi, which is of course the political center for Muslims were coming from this area, Islam, right? And over here is Mumbai and Kolkata. And so India is not a nation. India is a subcontinent, just like Europe, with different languages, different cultures, different perspectives. Bengalis are considered like the French people of India. Right away, that gives you a lot of ideas about how they deal with and how proud they are of their culture and their language. Yeah. Punjabis are just farmers, and their dance and music is everybody very folkloric. And this side is money, Down in the south, this is where all your computer engineers are coming from, right? Because they're extremely, whatever. I mean, verses from the Bhagavad Gita and things like that. These boys know 20,000 verses by the time they're 12 years old. Yeah. They come from families where they're celibate from the time they're born. They have finer white cells than Western people. It's unbelievable, the intellectual ability. But so it's a whole incredible subcontinent. So the word Hindu, okay. When the Arabs, the Islamic faith were coming, they came to the Sind River, and so in Arabic that's going to be Hind. So geographically, everybody beyond the Hind River were all Hindus. Yeah. So basically, it's a geographic term, and it was not used very much by anybody. But then it became, especially in maybe then that the British started using it a little bit, but usually it was geographic, And so, yeah, I got how to put it together here. Yeah. But then, about in the beginning of the 20th century, when it became the movement for independence and these kind of Swaraj, then they said, hey, we need one. They can call themselves Muslims, they can call themselves Christians. We need one name that we can call ourselves. So then Indians themselves started to call themselves Hindus, and it never completely, took over. If you look at a rupee note, Indian rupee note, it doesn't say India, which is Hindu. It says Bharata, actually in the actual indigenous language, which goes back to the whole tradition. So here we go. We got it here. Vedas. Are you familiar? We've discussed the Vedas. So I'm Oxford scholar, so many things. If you go back in tradition, we're saying that really beyond 2,000 years old, history is a little bit tacky. You're starting to get, was there a Jesus Christ? People start, it's like, well, if you can debate that, So 2,000 years. But at some point there were different schools of philosophy, right? Culture, so many things in India. In the European, in the European heaven, the British are the police, the Germans are the mechanics, the French are the lovers, the Italians are the cooks, and what else we got here? And the Swiss are the judges. And the European hell, the British are the cooks, the Germans are the police, The Swiss are the lovers, the French are the mechanics, and the Italian are the judges. Okay. In the Encyclopedia Britannica, there's only one country where they talk about the philosophy of that country. And it's a separate article, yeah? And that's India. So India always has had this. From China, you have Journey to the West with Sun Wukong and all these things. From the Zoroastrian side, you have the same thing coming. So India, we can look at it, very, very much has been this land where philosophy, culture, introspection. Carl Jung said psychology, introspective psychology wasn't born yesterday in the West, it was born this morning. He said these people have the incredible thing. But other things, no. It's a world of different cultures. So all this was being put down and assembled and sorted out. So historically, Veda Vyasadeva, he's gigantic. He then took the Veda, knowledge, wisdom, introspection, and divided it into 4 branches, Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva. And that became the basis of tremendous number of all the other cultures. You know, the Vedas, yeah. I finished off here. And then from that, the Vedas, you get in many different branches and so on. This was supposed to have happened 5,000 years ago. Okay, yeah. I'm 70%
I have
deaf.
a question because in my classes about India, I was taught that Hinduism was codified.
Was what?
Was codified.
Codified.
Hinduism,
Yeah, was
codified.
codified during the colonial times because before it was more of a exactly culture rather than a strict religion. And for example, before colonialism, there was a lot of like Hindu Muslims, for example.
Hindu what?
Muslims, that because Hinduism was more of a way of living and Islam was a religion.
Yeah.
And only afterwards it was codified
Yeah.
by the elites in
Yeah.
India, so they could exactly like go
Yeah.
with the vibe and role of the British.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering that it's hard. I feel like it's really hard to recognize this colonial heritage
Mhm.
and also do not neglect like such a long history of Hinduism. And I'm wondering how you can compromise those two because
Yeah.
there's history and there's religion, and it seems hard to compromise.
No, yeah,
Gabriela is an international student from Poland. Gabriela, you introduce yourselves. I was saying that Gabriela is an international student and she comes from Poland.
Okay. That's what I was saying before, that the word, my knowledge of this, for example, one of our friends, Harold Resnick, he's a graduate from Harvard and theology, another Ravi Gupta from so and so. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion of these things. I forgot his name, he was a very famous historian. He said there's 3 kinds of histories: the half-truth, the distorted truth, and the damn lie. He said if you have a history which describes things very accurately, you know you're dealing with category 2 or 3. Yeah, and so you can look at this. How are you going to describe what was happening, everything else, the literature, the publications, the communications? But there's one of our best friends, Dr. Samaresh Bandyopadhyay. He was head of the Department of Ancient Indian History and Culture at Calcutta University. We just saw him a few weeks ago. And at a certain point, Indian history became codified literally. I think it was the Gupta era. And before that, there were different things, inscriptions, whatever, So it's pretty good. But they had a different idea. They weren't concerned with history the way we are in the West. This is the whole contrast, the real contrast. So Hinduism, it was a word that some people used to describe certain things, and it was not referring to, oh boy, now the question is, what is a religion? Okay. We have the word ligament, right? So re-ligare. Yeah, religion means to relink, to reconnect in that sense. And it's coming out of the tradition of our heritage. What's his name? Alfred North Whitehead. He said the safest way to characterize all Western philosophy is to say the whole thing is a footnote to Socrates. So Socrates gave us an epistemology, rational empiricism, and he came down through Plato. Plato came down through Aristotle. Aristotle came through Averroes, right? Came out to what's his name? St. Jerome and the guy, whoever it was. Anyway, I forget his name. Thomas Aquinas.
Saint Thomas.
Thomas Aquinas, yeah, St. Thomas Aquinas. And the Pope formally endorsed St. Thomas Aquinas' epistemology and everything else and made it standard. And so then our view of religion, is like a line. It's everything else is happening, and God is, it's a very Euclidean view of reality. And also it's from many things. It's a whole discussion, but this is the contrast I was going to make between Dharma and religion. So there was no religion in that sense with the word Hinduism. But then it became useful, like I'm saying, this is with Vivekananda and other people saying, we need some term we can call ourselves, and that will give us the political power, that religion gives, which is what these people are using it for. I mean, these are Arabs, not, I have one friend who's an Arab. He said that people don't. It's not Islam that's causing problems. It's Arabs. He's Arab. And he adopted this, and so that was part of the reason. And that wasn't until the time of independence, which was like 1942 or something, that it really became a term. Very cultured Indians and many Indians, they will call themselves Sanatan. They will say we're engaging in Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan means eternal. The root of the word Dharma is Dri, which is Driti, the earth. So it's translated different ways. This is religion is translated different ways. So Driti means that which maintains something. So it's a very valid question. What is the Dharma of fire? What makes it fire? Heat and light, right? Yeah. What is the Dharma of water? Fluidity, these things. Yes, these are valid questions about what is Dharma. Now the next question comes up, Svaipum Samparo Dharmo. What is the Dharma of human beings? Oh, wow. Yeah. Now I'm starting to talk, for example, what is the Dharma, what is Dharma, what is Stri Dharma? What is the fundamental nature of Dharma for women? Two things the Vedas will come up with. Want to know what they are? What is the fundamental Dharma for ladies? Chastity and shyness. And when we were translating this, they were translating it as timidez, right? Timidez. But that's not what it is. You're telling me more accurate is rekatada. Rekatada, which is different than timidez, no? So very subtle things. And then Mahabharata, so much literature discussing these things in great detail. When you see these dramas put into your language, boy, they're powerful. Ladies acting out their dharma and somebody else, and it's just, very difficult situations, how to deal with them. So that's what was there before. There was dharma, and dharma was, I would say, you see that was the essence of what we're talking about. But it was something different than religion. It was way of life, everything else, and so forth and so on. And so later then, I think as far as I've heard everything else, it was really Vivekananda and others, the political revolutionists, who took it and said, hey, let's just take this thing. Many of the rituals are the same. How they're doing offering lamps and this kind of stuff. There's a commonality amongst that. But in terms of divinities and processes, there's variety, and the end goal, and so on, variety. But does that really relate to your question? Yeah. And so the colonial atmosphere was trying to bring in basically scientific, Euclidean scientific view of the world and organize everything in terms of that. When Dr. Samaras said it's so difficult, he said in Europe there's just enough history, just the right amount of history, to make a line and stuff. Europe, United States and places like that, not so much. He said in India there's just too much, and the layers are overlapping. And we said as soon as there's a good rainfall, all these artifacts pop up, and you got, So he said it's just it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the country even now. We've seen that. They're trying to industrialize and everything else, and you can see problems, very big problems.
How does the concept of Dharma relate to the presentation of a text like the Kama Sutra?
Oh my God, okay. How does the concept of Dharma relate to the Kama Sutra? Who wrote that? Yeah, like Cosmo or something. Yeah, something, yeah. There's a project called the Catalogus Catalogorum. It is an index of all known ancient Sanskrit literatures, and different universities were maintaining it. I think maybe it's been going on for maybe like 40 years now. When it was last published, it had over 140,000 ancient Sanskrit texts, divided into law, medicine, architecture, ontology, philosophy, all these things like that, sociology. Yeah. And I was telling Dr. Samaresh this, and he was laughing. He says, at Varanasi University alone, there are 100,000 unclassified texts. They're just trying to smoke them and keep them from being destroyed. So in terms of literature and everything else, so I don't know, I can't remember the author, but that would be very important because, you know, the authors represent whole schools. Many times, very, very powerful Indian poets and authors write more books after they die than when they were alive.
I think it's Vatsayana.
Yeah.
Vatsayana.
So he's not such a considered great personality, but of course, obviously, you know why this is popular and people look at it because it's describing all this weird stuff. But it's not only describing, you know, different weird postures and all these things. It's also describing the sociological, right? Social relationships that are involved in for gratification. We got to get on side here. So, in Hinduism, so Vedic, let's talk about Vedic culture really. People who are participating in this, they would say we belong to Sanatana Dharma, the eternal Dharma, or we belong to Vedic Dharma. So all these things mostly are coming out of the Vedas like that. What are the Vedas? How do they manifest? So this would be coming under the categories of social psychology and this kind of area like that. And there are probably other texts, you know, similar by other authorities like that. So that's how it would be included. Okay, usually you're going to talk about four things. Dharma, you know this? You just get Artha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These will be universal within Hinduism. Dharma again means activities, proper lifestyle, the Dharma of a policeman, the Dharma of a housewife, the Dharma, you know, of a student. It covers 4 ages of life: student life, married life, retired life, renounced life. These are called the ashrams. It covers 4 castes. Intellectuals, like everybody here, would be a Brahmin. Okay. And after that, you get Kshatriyas, who are warrior spirited, death before dishonor. You know, if you surrender to me, I take care of it. And you see that, you know, okay, but Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, mercantile class, Shudra, artisans, mechanics, software engineers, 90% of the population. So it describes these things, how you're supposed to live for ultimate goal. Now, what is that? Is it liberation? Is it going to the spiritual world? Yeah, different groups are going to discuss different goals like that. So Vatsayana and the Kama Sutra is going to be part of Dharma, Artha, Kama. How to gratify your senses in a proper way so that it also inspires something higher. So it's very, very difficult to find any Indian literature that simply deals with gross lust and gratification of lust. Almost all of them have, you know, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So to fit in like that, and I know nobody in India who follows it. Maybe someplace, yeah. Maybe some movies with Jackie Chan. Yeah. Go on for 7 days and 7 nights. Hinduism. So polytheism, okay, again you're going to look at it, it's big, it's incredible. So our perspective, you know, being Chaitanya or Bengali Vaishnavas, and in general, part of a broader set of monotheistic people. And what it kind of comes down to is the ultimate goal. You know, I remember a Jehovah's Witness tract, right? The guy that saw it there was this Jehovah's Witness guy was going door to door and preaching to people to give up fornication and drink and to turn to Jesus. Okay, turn the pages there. and he came to the bad man, and the bad man was watering his cactuses or something there, smoking a cigarette. And the Jehovah's Witness preacher said, give up all these things. And the bad man shot him with water, and he went away. And the bad man had a heart attack and died, and he went to heaven. Okay, it's all over. Okay. And so heaven, there's God. God's about this big, right, on a throne. And then there's all the people waiting to be judged, big long line, about this big. And the angels are keeping control, and they're about this big. This is the goal, okay. And God is sitting there, he hasn't got a face, he's got a light, right? And out of that light comes a speech bubble, right? And what is he sitting on? It looks like some bench from a park made out of cement or something, no ornaments, So somebody comes and they say, depart thou, O accursed sinner, to eternal damnation. The door opens here, there's some fire, people are going, ooh, ee, ah, ah, we're sorry, ha, ha, too late. Okay. Depart thou, O blessed one, to eternal bliss. The door opens and there's nothing there, just a light. Wait a little bit, we're going to deal with you later. But that's as far as the thing goes. God's sitting there and he sits there all day long saying, go to hell, go to heaven, go to heaven, go to hell. Then I guess the bell rings and he opens his lunch and he'll see what Mrs. God put in for lunch. So there's different people, right? What Egyptian culture. Have you discussed Egyptian religion at all? No. No, there's a whole. What's it called? The Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
There's a Tibetan Book of the Dead, but there's the Egyptian one also, which was kidnapped by the British and taken to the museum here. And you have a whole process of what's going to happen. And of course, not surprising that in the Egyptian hell, there's always plenty of water. And then there's the Islamic heaven. And usually there's a lot more discussion of hell than there is of heaven in almost all these religions. So this is happening also in Hinduism, about Vedic culture. And Advaita Vedanta, very powerful, is basically monism. That the whole purpose of life is to get free from all these entanglements, all these reincarnations, all these things, and come to a peaceful, general place, where these things don't exist anymore. The peace. This is Advaita, and it's powerful. The Dvaita philosophies then are Christianity and monotheism and stuff. No, once you get free from all these entanglements, Socrates is saying the same thing, right? Then your real self comes out. After you come out of the cave of reflections, Socrates' cave with the shadows, then you come to the real world. Yes, in the beginning it's light. Oh God, but you can't see anything. That's what we're saying as far as Advaita goes. But then you start to see people and real things, and this is the real world. So that's the Vaishnava perspective, right? And it's monotheistic. And there's some variety in different perspectives and processes, but it's basically a lot of similarity. And most people, polytheism. How many demigods? Basically 3 prominent demigods. We discussed them. Triune Murti, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The creator is Brahma, mode of passion. Okay. The maintainer is Vishnu, and the destruction is Shiva. Right? And this is a mode of nature, time. It's a whole very sophisticated, very nice theology. But then after that, in terms of maintaining the universe and everything else, and this was very true in Christianity. If you look back, we had so many, demigods and people running things. Vayu is in charge of air. Indra is in charge of, just like Zeus, rain, thunderbolt, rain, these kind of things. Without rain, nothing happens. It's very interesting. Vayu, Indra, Yama, Yamaraj. Who does he correspond to in terms of the Greek culture? Pluto, Hades. Very Varuna, Pluto, and Indra. What's his name? Jupiter. Almost identical. And they say there are people running things. And so it's nobody's running anything. It's all happening by atoms and molecules. And they're evolving to the point where they're becoming so sophisticated that they're handling all these complicated and sophisticated things, and it all starts with the chunk. Okay. And why did the chunk change? This is our science fanaticism. And not just saying from the beginning there are people and people run things and they're on different levels of consciousness. Just like rats are aware of our lives, but what do they think of us? You know? What do cockroaches think of us? Yeah? What do the cockroaches think of Madrid? Yeah, so we're to the fairies, we look like rats. You know, the Gandharvas, the fairies, Morgan Le Fay, they have such a powerful existence. We look like rats. To the demigods who run the sun and the moon and all this kind of stuff, we look like cockroaches. To Lord Brahma, who was the creator of the entire universe, almost on the level of God, we look like atoms and molecules. Right? And all these things, of course, are changing. So then the devatas or demigods are just usually people involved, you know, with the maintenance, destruction, everything else. And different ones are recommended. If you're extremely in the mode of ignorance, everything else, they're recommending to get a job, you know, get a pretty wife, get a car. So you find the scriptures are talking about these things. By the way, that's not the ultimate goal, but it's not emphasized. So different Puranas are emphasizing for those in the mode of ignorance, those in the mode of good passion, and those in the mode of goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to Hinduism.
Yeah, after a quick research on Google, if someone just searches Hare Krishna and doesn't really get into it seems like maybe some kind. I'm gonna choose my words because it was born, of course, inspired by Indian traditions and texts, but in New York, am I correct? And as such, my questions are first, if it can be considered some kind of westernized, I mean, some kind this tradition taken and adapted to maybe a different culture, and how in India is actually perceived, if it's practiced.
Our culture?
Yeah, in India, and how it's seen, if it's practiced. If it's just a way of life, like a normal guy, you met someone on the street, or...
A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who was the main missionary, brought the culture to New York and everything else, was flexible, but at the same time to certain principles he's just stuck with, and very, very much taking himself as being a servant of his spiritual masters is a very strong part of the tradition. So I would say that it's adapted to some degree to Western culture, but our monks, I have two sets like this with a pair of shorts. And sometimes I'm traveling like this, and a Catholic monk will come up and say, "I'm also a monk." Yeah, but don't even have collars anymore. So we've been, in that sense, many ways, very strict, and especially in principles and so on. These kind of things. Yeah, but adapted. I mean, it's not like the ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement is different in Venezuela than it is in Peru. I traveled to South America. It's different in Spain. It's different. It's the way it is. But fundamental principles that ultimately the cause of all causes is one. We believe in one God, Father Almighty, Maker of heaven and earth, by whom all things are created. Yeah, same monotheistic thing like that. So nail me up. Then right now, ISKCON is an institution. I look at it 3 levels. ISKCON is an institution. ISKCON is a society of friends, friendly people, whatever. It's a cultural group. And finally, it is a personal relationship with Krishna. Unless you got that, you haven't really got the essence of, of the culture and so on. And it's quite possible. You pray to God and you feel, he says, "Yeah, okay, I got you covered, man." I mean, you feel, there's somebody there. And the reason I'm not preceding him all the time is because I'm running around and all these distracted things, but the times when I'm supposed to be praying and this kind of stuff, so you start to get reinforcement feedback. So as an institution, as a community of people, social relationships, and finally as an ontological experience, religious experience. As an institution, ISKCON is very interesting. We can start talking about what's happening right now. They're having a really big war right now, which may split it in half. Not even a half, 2/3, 1/3. Not a war, but a discussion over some ontological positions. Right now, formally, they classify themselves, according to the census, as having 1 million members now. 1 million. And of course, most of those are in India. yes. But other countries, yeah, all over the place. And I guess it's like United States, yeah. And many of them are Indians, but also Western people too. What's his name, Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and everybody else, they go to inaugural functions like that and so on. So we are considered, you know, we're considered like having Western, it's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we are considered to have, you know, adjusted to certain standards and stuff. In South India, how ladies dress and everything else is very much tied to their religious tradition, and you won't find a lot of, you know, we aren't so strict in that and so on, right? So there are Indian ethnic differences, and we, because we're international, we have, you know, more like a general program. But one of my friends, he was getting married. Of course, there are going to be 300 people at the wedding. It's an Indian wedding. What are we going to cook? Are we going to have vegetarian? We were strictly vegetarian, no onion, no garlic. We don't even take things cooked by people we don't know. Yeah. So then they asked, well, what standard do you want for the wedding? And he was surprised that 80% of the people said, we want the ISKCON standard. Yeah, because that's how it's becoming accepted. This is something, you know, we can all get behind. The Jain standard would have been even stricter than we are in Jain culture and so on. And Bala Gopal would have been no chilies because they worship Krishna as a little baby, and you can't offer chilies to a little baby. Yeah. So it's very much accepted now.
Because you mentioned like the schism that is happening, and I'm wondering if, do you think that Krishna will be able to be more responsive to like all the bad things that were done by some members? Because like for example, like I come from a very Catholic country, and no one is like, even though bad things done by the church, they resurface every once in a while.
Yeah.
The church is unable to address them, and I'm wondering if you think that Krishnas will be able to respond to the.
Well, we're not as old as the Catholic Church. Yeah, I think, what is it now, 55 years or something? Yeah, ISKCON is like how old?
66.
Yeah. Okay, 66 years old,
66.
which in terms of religion and performance record, but we've had, you know, we've gone through a lot of things like that. And I've been through, I mean, I was there on the inside of some of this stuff, and I've suffered temptations myself, you know. Yeah, I mean, you know, but okay, I followed it through that. And you see the people who have the big fall downs are the people with the big power and everything else. And I never had that. Abraham Lincoln said, many people are able to survive under adversity. He said, if you really want to test somebody's character, give them power and money. Yeah, and so, you know, the Catholic Church, of course, has had a tremendous heritage of different things like that. I don't know. First phase is they'll laugh at you. We went through that. Second phase, they realize you're serious, they'll start attacking you. And in Poland, we had sometimes, you know, heavy attacks. You know. The third stage is then they'll start to ask you questions and become interested in what you're doing. And that's where we're coming now. And the biggest danger I see is we start to become a complacent, socially, you know, an influential religion, and it's peaceful and people are nice, and we lose the perspective of, you know, no, there's something more than just becoming fat and happy. Yeah. So, and they've addressed the problems, I think, you know. I've been through so many things like that, there's so many. And other people on the outside too, yeah, okay. So far we've been okay, we're doing okay. I mean, being able to prevent them, you know, if anybody tells you there's no problems in his institution, there are no problems in my institution.
No.
Yeah, you just, no. But if you say, yeah, these are some of the problems and this is how we've dealt with them, okay, you know. So I think it's been doing pretty well as an institution. I've 2 times I was ready to leave, but then I was just going through and say, okay, things are going on, you know. Maharaj and I discussed this. We have a lot of contacts, but it's a tremendous amount of reorganization at this point, because now I say again, we started off with maybe 500 members around the world. Now I have 1 million, and these are in India. big, expensive temples are coming up like that. There's power, influence, and everything else. Somebody in the United States just bought 1,500 acres of land to build a Hare Krishna town, and people are starting to involve like that. So I don't know. It depends upon you. Are you going to help? Are you going to help us? Yeah, we all have to help each other. We're not saying everybody should give up being Catholics and everything. No, stick with your religion, but let's start working together and criticizing each other. Yeah.
You're appealing to ecumenism, no? Ecumenism.
Ah.
No? Or
Ecumenical.
Ecumenical?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, that can be defined in bad ways, right? Yeah, right? Yeah, nobody does anything for you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Chintaveda Veda Tattva, Sanskrit, yeah. We're all in this together.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yes.
No, I really thank you, Professor, because you were opening clues for us to have, points of discussion, and that's very interesting. That's what we expected also for your visit when Professor
What time is it now?
suggested. We have for 10:40 now. You still
Okay.
We have 20 minutes left.
20 minutes left.
Okay.
If you and the music, if wants to come around 11, well, it will be the break. So
Okay.
we want to arm many people with the music.
Okay. Any more questions?
Tomorrow we were going to start. Next week we were going to start seeing what is a sect.
Oh, what is a
Because-
sect?
Yes, that's the question that
As-
we're
as-
going
as
to see
content,
with
yeah.
the students
Okay.
before approaching the idea
Yeah.
of particular cases. So we are going to
Yeah.
discuss in our classes what is a sect. Is Christianism, is the Catholic Church a sect?
Okay, well, because there's also the word cult. What is
Yes.
a cult?
That's what we want to go. We want to see. What is the difference between a sect and a cult?
As far as I know, in the United States, a sect is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity has many sects,
Exactly.
but a cult is evil. But as far as I understand, the Spanish language is the exact opposite.
It's the opposite, exactly.
Yeah. So it's
Because with the cult, we connect with the guy in Guyana, no? Who, I don't know.
Jim Jones. Jim Jones?
Jim Jones.
James
yes,
Jonestown.
Yes, in the Guyanas where.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting because then in the United States, for example, we get all this thing about being a cult and everything else, so forth, so on. It's interesting history. But then somebody pointed out from our side on television, and so they say, well, but look at all of the cults that have killed people this way and that way. Every single one of them was a Christian. Oh, you're right. Yeah, looking at them. The other ones that, what's it called, Reverend Moon and type of people.
Yes.
I mean, doing some strange things, but they never were to the point of such extremities and so on. Yeah. The Vedas, in Vedic culture, would say Veda Puranadi Pancharatrika Vidina. Yeah. That you're going to start getting a cult when you're not based properly upon traditional, accepted scriptural resources coming down by people who properly realize them. Those two things. You have to have a scriptural resource, which is okay, and you have to have people who are practicing them and applying them. If you look at our tradition, Bengali Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, it goes back 500 years to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then it goes back thousands of years to Madhvacharya, then to the Vedas in general. You find really strange deviations. I mean, just one of the deviations, for example, on the wedding night, the wife spends the first night with the guru, and that way she becomes prasadam, sacrament. Yeah, oh God, yeah. And these things go on for some generations. So our tradition is not at all, free. Anybody else's traditions like that and so on. Our point, this is the material world. It's like this is the prison house. You go to the prison and somebody steals your shoes. Hey, this is where you are. Yeah. And then the spiritual world is someplace else. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is it called? So scriptural resource, and then realized realized people. So we have our tradition, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He's totally transparent to his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who was born, I think it was 3 years before Carl Jung. Yeah, so it makes it incredible for my interest. Jung and Bhaktisiddhanta is just so incredible. Because Bhaktisiddhanta was seeing industrialization in the Asia in depth, and Carl Jung was seeing industrialization in the West in depth. How many people have read Carl Jung's biography?
Well, I read a few texts and books. Carl Jung.
Yes, but biography.
The memories, dreams, and reflections. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, this is my area now. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami was looking at all the Western philosophers, talking about them. He liked Socrates, and then he came to Jung, and he said, of all of them, he makes the most sense. And so many points. Jung, when he was growing up, he was having all these unusual experiences, and nobody to help him sort them out. Some things were happening at that time, in terms of introspective psychology with Bueller and others, but it was just very little. Then he met Freud, and the two of them are having so many experiences. Freud was like an older figure.
Yes.
But at a certain point he felt that Freud was just, was not going ahead with synchronicities and things like that, and some broader force and so on, so he left. But then he came to the West, he came to the United States, he met William James, and they felt very happy with him and his ideas. Then they introduced him to a shaman in New Mexico. He's back again between the two wars. And at some point, he said, Mountain Lake, why is it that your people feel that all European people are crazy? And Mountain Lake said, because they say they have thoughts in their head. And Carl Jung said, well, where else would you have thoughts? And Mountain Lake said, a sane man has thoughts in his heart. Only a madman has thoughts in his head. And Carl Jung, he couldn't talk. He suddenly was realizing how, 90% of the world's cultures looked at Europeans and their whole view of the place. The guys are all nuts, like that. Yeah, we identify with our thoughts in our heads and everything else like that and so on. Then he went to Africa. He wanted to see if black people had the same dreams as white people.
Yes,
No, it was a very wide open time. He did such incredible things and so on. So
you recommend this reading, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections of Carl Jung.
that's the first one. It's interesting. He refused to have it published until he was dead, because he said, if I told people what I was actually experiencing, they were already bothering me. So most of the books you get, Man and His Symbols, are things he wrote, that people would be cool with. Then after that, Shonu Shamdashini, he's kind of like the Acharya now in the London School
Of economics.
No, medicine,
Oh, yes.
and in the history of medicine. So they, Jung's Red Book. Carl Jung was taking his beautiful bound red book and drawing these beautiful pictures of the things he was experiencing through his techniques and all the subconscious things that are in our lives, archetypes, which we agree with completely. He was seeing the things that we're saying are there, but he was so far ahead of his time that it was just impossible. He said if people adopt these ideas now, like 1925 or 27, he said it'll be useless and maybe even dangerous, right? So he said, I'll store this stuff. 100 years after he was gone, his family finally agreed to have the Red Book released, and it was incredible, just the pictures, the icons, and everything else. That's how and other stuff's coming out too. One of the Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, the Tavistock lectures, where he gave and discussed these things, and then Carl Jung and the Making of Modern Psychology, The Dream of a Science, Shonu Shamdashini. And it takes Carl Jung's journey, through the modernization or whatever. Usually you go through the history of war, You look at things through the history of politics, the history of war. But this is the history of the development of internal perspective, idea, philosophy, culture. He wasn't alone. Many other people were going through the same thing, and this is how we arrive at where we are now. So, and then Shonu Shamdashini. It took me 2 months to read the book, but it was just such a perspective. You know? And the thing is, you can cut the top off the weed, but what happens? It grows back, maybe even stronger. You know? So Bhaktisiddhanta, Carl Jung, they both are pointing out problems, that we were taking on certain problems, certain mistakes, right? St. Thomas Aquinas gave us a certain point of view, right? Yeah. St. Thomas Aquinas' idea was analytical. If you want to understand the cat, you cut him open, take off his eyeballs, you analyze him. Now you know the cat. Well, where's the cat? Yeah. St. Jerome got his PhD at the same time. His thing was, not St. Jerome, St. Bonaventura. He was synthetic. If you want to know the cat, you synthesize with him. You see what he likes, what his movements are. But the Pope said we're going to go with St. Thomas Aquinas. And so our whole Western view has become extremely analytical in the way we try to understand things and everything else. And other people in the modern world are saying, no, we got to, you know, look at other aspects to it. Yeah, yeah. So some of the things we're doing. We chat a little bit now, maybe or something else. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You have some more kirtan now?
Good.
It's a good time for chanting,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So our main process when it gets down to it is Gandharva Veda, singing, dancing, and drama. But we develop it to a point, unlimited points. You can see how far the drama goes and everything else. So first he chants, and we listen. Then we chant, and he listens. And it's such if you study improvisational theater, you know this is such an incredibly connecting process for yoga and meditation. Are you going to chant the Maha Mantra? Okay, here we go. Thank you very much.